Welcome to the Game Academy. This is Mark, and today we're going to be taking a look at Uwe Rosenberg's Glass Road. So now we're going to take a look at Glass Road. Uwe Rosenberg, of course, has made lots of great games, from Agricola to Bonanza and all sorts in between. Le Havre's probably my favorite, but Glass Road was released last year. It was 2013's Essen hit, I think, one of them. And if you look in here, when I open up the box is packed full of components. I mean, it's just... You know, a lot of times you get games and there is way more room in the box than you need. And this is one of the few boxes where I don't know if somebody's come up with an insert organizer for this, but boy, does it need one, because this is full. I mean, it's a smaller box, but boy, is it full of stuff. So you got this board here, which you're going to put different buildings on, and these buildings have different abilities. You got these yellow buildings, which produce things one time for you, and some are worth points. And then you've got red ones, which are these reddish-orange buildings, which are end points for you, victory points at the end. So final scoring conditions. Then you got these blue ones, which give you anytime abilities, which you can convert things as you please. They also give you points as well. You're going to be putting those out onto your board here, as you can see, and it's got rooms for these forests. So everything's pre-printed here. You know, you put a forest here, forest there, a grove here, pond there. You got all these different terrains that you're going to be putting out there on the board, and they're going to help you score things, but you're also going to be able to convert them into resources and other things like that. But the heart of the game is going to be these little wheels here that you're going to set up, and as you can see, it's got these little arrows on top to show you where everything kind of starts. And so this is one of the coolest mechanics of the game, and this is what really makes it, I think, a more unique game than the rest. So I'm just going to set this up here. Now, one thing is, this is probably one of the things that's hardest to wrap your head around about this game, because this is something that is such a neat mechanic that when you play around with it, it can be very frustrating too. But basically what happens is, let's say I gain some sand. So this is sand right here, and I gain 3 sand on my turn somehow. Some way I gain 3 sand, right? Alright, so this goes up. Anytime there is space, there's an open space, this automatically slides over. It always goes this direction to fill that gap until it finds another resource. So it's basically converting all these resources into glass. It caps out, the most glass you can ever have is 3, and there's reasons for that, but if it gets to 3, then it's just stuck there. Vice versa, the highest you can get these things up to is 7. So once it's at 7, you can't go any higher. It's stuck there. However, you get a bunch of stuff up and up and up, and then maybe finally I move this food up 5 somehow, and then all of a sudden, whoop, well, it can only go up this far, but next thing you know, you might not have enough resources to build what you want to build, and that can be very frustrating, but it's also just an extremely neat mechanic. However, it makes it very, very hard and very complicated at times for you to plan things out accordingly. I love it and hate it at the same time. There are times when you're going to love it, and there's times when you're going to hate it. It just depends. But it's a mechanic that's so interesting and neat that it kind of intrigues you and locks me into this game. Overall, I do like this game, and I'll give you my final opinion here in a minute, but I really like this mechanic, but it's frustrating mechanic. It really gets you at points in time where you're like, oh man, I really needed some more wood, but since I increased my wood, I lost half of everything else because it moved up the dial. That sort of thing is going to happen. Now everybody has a hand of cards, and they're all the same. Each deck's the same. They just have these different icons on the back so you can differentiate them. And each card has a top and bottom part of what you can do on it. It has any cost associated here over on the side, so you need to spend 1 wood. So if I need to spend 1 wood, let's say I have 4, I just move it down. I go from, that's stuck on my finger. I can go from here, boop, to there. So 4 to 3. I move that down, okay? And then I would get either 3 coal or 3 coal. Well, I'll explain this in a moment. But basically what you're going to do, if you're playing with 3 or 4 players, you're going to select 5 of these cards, and then what you'll do is everybody, once you put the rest of your cards aside, everybody selects one of these cards, puts it face down. You go around in player order. This is a nice little goblet here, tells you player order. So I would go first, and I flip over the clay worker, and I spend my water, but I ask anybody else, do you have clay worker in your hand? Not face down, but in your hand. And if they have it in their hand, they get to tack on and follow up with that as well. As you can see, there's 2 divots on the side of this board here so that you can do that. And then they just put their card over here because they can follow up to twice. And the reason for that is because otherwise you'd be playing more than 5 cards theoretically, and you can't do that if you only have 5 cards. But anyway, if nobody else plays it, you get both benefits. If you're the only one who plays it, I would get, in this case, I would get 4 clay. Alright, so I would get 4 clay. Let's say somebody else played that card. I would only get a choice of top or bottom. Both are clay, so that's not a great example. But let's say here, then I would have a choice of 2 water and a wood or 2 water and a sand. I get to decide which one I want. There's better examples of this. Here's the carpenter. I could take just 1 wood, or I could build a building. And basically that's how it works. Everybody plays 3 cards face down, and then once everybody's done that, you keep going. Now, one of the things that can be frustrating about this is that if you don't get a follow-up on another player's turn and play some of these cards, if you don't select some of the same cards as other people, you might have a miserable time because then you're playing less cards over the course of the game. I've had a game where I think I played along maybe 1 card or 2 cards the whole game. And keep in mind, it's not a very long game. You're going to have 5 cards in your hand 4 different times, which means the least amount of cards you can play is 12. But if everybody else seems to be following up on your cards, but you never get a follow-up on theirs, that can be very frustrating for you. And I felt at times it was frustrating for me as well. This is a weird game because it's got so much going on. It's very simple, but yet very complicated. And there are times when there's so much chaos involved in what other people select that it's very hard to determine, okay, this person's going to play that card, or I think they're going to play this card. But sometimes you're like, well, they are probably going to play that card, but that card doesn't do me any good, so why would I play it? Well, you play it because then you get a follow-on. I'm not good at that sometimes. I've had a friend who played this game, and I really think he had a bad time because he only followed on with a card once, or he followed up with a card once, and that was it during the whole game, and he lost badly. Your scores aren't going to be very high in this. If you break the 20s, you're doing pretty good. I am not good at this game overall, but yet I like it. Even Reed plays this game with us from time to time, and he does fairly well. I mean, he does just as well as I do sometimes, as a matter of fact. And, you know, is there strategy to it? Well, I think there is. I think there's a lot of strategy to it, but I can't determine where that level is. Yet, for some reason, I really like this game. On the other hand, sometimes when I'm playing it, I'm like, gosh, this is so annoying. This is so frustrating. It's one of those games that's hard to figure out why I like it so much. But I think it's more the mechanics sometimes make it better than what it actually is. And the moving the wheel and all those other things just make it a little more fun than what it might be otherwise. And I think I need to develop some better strategies, honestly. But I think there's more to it than what meets the eye. But I also feel like I'm at times handicapped in what I can do based on the cards I selected. So keep that in mind. You might have a frustrating play of this game or two, but don't give up on it. I think there's a lot of replayability in this game. The tiles alone add a lot of replayability, and I hope someday that there's an expansion. I really do. I really hope that there's something to add on to it. And the game's short. It's very short. 4 rounds is nothing in this game. You'll pass right through and you're like, shouldn't we play another round? It's like, no, it's done. It's over. And you're like, well, my scoring engine didn't get finished in time. I didn't get all this done. And that can be frustrating too when your scoring engine doesn't get done. I give it a thumbs up and I really recommend it, but at the same time, I hesitate for those of you who may have some frustrating experiences with this. I would say it's a really good game, but your mileage may vary. And keep in mind, it's a game you might want to play a couple times because you might have one bad experience, but then the rest of your experiences are great. I know everybody I've played it with has really liked it except for one person, and that's because he got totally hosed the first time he played it and might not ever play it again. But that's Glass Road, Uwe Rosenberg.